As they're taking off, I just want to take a moment this morning to thank Doug for stepping up last week, for sharing about the importance of living in the day that we are in right now, that we can get so distracted by what happened yesterday, and we can live so much in our past, but we can also get really distracted by what's coming down the pike, that we forget that what we do today has an effect on what happens tomorrow, that we can only impact what happens today. So, thank you, Doug, for being willing to step up and to do that last week. It was great to be back home in my home church last week where I grew up, not listening to my brother as the pastor because he had a guest speaker last week as well, even though he was there. But I got to hear from a 19-year-old young lady sharing similar type of thoughts, but really talking a lot about how change is one of those inevitable pieces of our lives. And it was fantastic. It was great to be with family. But this morning, as we come back together, I want to ask you to just, for a second, and I don't want you to spend so much time on it that you end up for the next half hour only thinking about this, but think about what are some of those things in your life that they just they torment you. They taunt you, they mock you. You go through your life, maybe it's year after year when it's New Year's resolution time, or each day you wake up and you're thinking, tomorrow's the day I'm going to take this on. Tomorrow's the day that I'm going to make this change in my life, or that famous phrase of, I'll start again Monday. But time after time after time, we fail, and it feels like they're just sitting there and they're just mocking us, saying, you can't do this, you're not big enough, you'll never defeat me, you'll never take me down. What are some of those tormentors in your life? Maybe you have one of those pictured in your mind right now, maybe you don't. Now, we live in a world that tells us that you have the strength inside of you to defeat those tormentors, that you have the strength inside of you to take down the mockers in your life, that you are the hero of your story. And what I want to communicate with you this morning is that you, and I think this is a beautiful truth, you are not the hero of your story. You don't have to be the hero of your story. The person asking you to be the hero of your story is you. Or possibly one of those enemies is convincing you that you have to be the hero of your story. And I'd like to illustrate that for you this morning by telling you a story. So this story begins in one of those beautiful valleys. The lush green valleys where the grass is nice and tall, and you look out over the valley and you see all the flowers kind of poking up, the wildflowers. You look around you and you've got the rolling hills all around you they're cutting you off from the rest of the world and all the distractions and all the busyness of the rest of the world. And it's just this peaceful, beautiful valley that you get to sit in. And it's one of those places where you go and you contemplate life. You can't help but contemplate life and be at peace while you're in this valley. Maybe you're the type that you like to just sit there and feel the breeze on your skin, or hear the breeze rustling through the grass and moving the flowers. You can see the effects of it. It's not a heavy wind. It's just a nice, wonderful breeze. And you look up and you see the bright blue sky ahead of you, or maybe occasionally you see one of those big white fluffy clouds that moves across, the kind that when we're kids and sometimes when we're still creative enough as adults, we look up and we say, hey, that one looks like a giraffe, or that one looks like a dinosaur. And you just sit there and you find yourself just looking at the occasional cloud that comes across and just enjoying the warmth of the sun. It's a beautiful valley. Or maybe if you're not the type that likes to sit still, which I'm not the type that likes to sit still, I'm the type that likes to move. Maybe it's one of those valleys where you walk through it a little bit and you have your hands out there and you can feel the grasses between your fingers because it's nice and tall. And you smell the flowers as you're walking through. Or if that sounds miserable to you because you want to be more active than that, it's one of those valleys where you go jogging through it and you work up a little bit of a sweat, or you get a nice stretch on while you're out there and you let the tension release out of your body. Are you picturing the valley yet? Have I made enough examples of what this valley's like? If we were in Casper still, I would name a valley, but it wouldn't mean anything to any of you, so I'm not going to bother naming it. See, that's the valley where this story takes place. But today, the valley isn't peaceful. Today, the valley is a place of torment. Not physical torment, at least not yet, but it's a place of mental, verbal torment, of emotional anguish. You see, today the king is waking up in this valley. Just like he has for the past 39 days, he's waking up in this valley, and he's been sleeping on the ground, and he's sore, and he does that thing where you sleep in a tent and you wake up and you kind of got to stretch out your body before you can even really get moving beyond that. And you're thinking, man, I wish I had a chiropractor that I'm married to or something like that, and they could help me out right now. Lori knows what I'm talking about. But it's, you do the stretch and you kind of hit your face a little bit, kind of trying to wake yourself up. That's what the king is doing this morning as he's trying to wake up. And he's laying there and he's thinking, I don't want to move. And it's not just because I'm tired, it's because I know what's about to come. But I'm the king, and I have to show a sign of strength. I have to get out of my tent. I can't just lay here all day long. And so finally, begrudgingly, he pulls back the tent flap, and with his eyes squinting into that bright sun that he should be enjoying in this valley, his eyes squinting into it, he hears the voice again. And it's not the peaceful voice of God. It's not the directional voice of God. It's not that inner calm that we like to talk about. Instead, it's the voice of his tormentor. It's the voice that he's been hearing every morning for the last 39 days, yelling out to him. It's the voice of his 9-foot-tall, Thanos-looking, The Rock, big-built, armor-on, javelin-throwing torturer, tormentor, yelling out to him yet again. He doesn't have to hear the words because he knows what's coming, but they come anyway. He says, why are you all even here? You know you can't defeat me. I'm a champion. I'm unbeatable. I'm undefeated. And you all are just a bunch of puny little men who follow a puny little king who worship a puny little God. You sit there trembling every morning because you know that you can't take me down. But I'm going to put the same offer out to you today that I put out to you for the last 39 days. You send out one of your little weaklings to fight me. And I'll take them on, one-on-one. We'll go cage match style. We'll go to the death. And whoever wins this battle, let's just say the impossible happens and you win this battle, your little puny weakling wins. Well, we'll call off the rest of this war and we'll be your people. That'll be it. It'll be done. But when I win, because we all know that's what's going to happen, when I win, let's call the war off then too, and you can just come and serve us. No? No takers again? Nobody thinks they can take me on? That's kind of what I figured. You're all just a bunch of puny little cowards. Guess I'll see you later. We can do this whole song and dance again tomorrow. And the king, hearing his tormentor yet again, shoulders slumped, turns and just heads right back into his tent. He knows none of his men are going to fight. He knows he's the one who should be going out to fight this guy. He's the champion fighter of his people. He's the one that they all look up to. But he knows he can't win. And he knows he's not going to ask anybody else to win. Now I'm guessing that this story sounds familiar to you. In fact, some of you could probably tell me where it's found in Scripture. And as we're reading through the Bible, we're going to get to that story here pretty quickly. We read this story over and over and over again, but what if this isn't just a Bible story? What if it isn't just a bunch of characters that lived a long time ago that makes a nice, neat little story that we can tell our kids and leave out some of the most gruesome details? What if this story actually has meaning for our life today? I know that this story is my story. And I would bet that this story is your story. Because I would bet that there is some tormentor in your life that teases you day in and day out, telling you, you will never beat me. You've got some addiction in your life, and that addiction is telling you day after day, you can't take me down. Oh, you can try again. You can try another approach, and in a week, I'll be right here, strong as ever, telling you that you are a failure, telling you that you can never do this. Maybe that tormentor comes in the form of busyness. Maybe that tormentor comes in the form of the opposite of that, and it comes in the form of laziness. I don't know what your tormentor is, but I would bet that there is some mocker in your life that continually tells you that you are not good enough, you are not strong enough. We sang a song earlier about how we are the children of God. There is something in your life telling you, yeah, you might be the children of God, but that's only because you're still just a child. You're not as tough as you think you are. You're not as strong as you think you are. And those tormentors in our lives, we have to begin to realize that as this story ties into our story, these tormentors in our lives, they're not just tormenting us. These tormentors in our lives are mocking God. They're not just mocking you. They're mocking God. I thought it was perfect timing this morning. As I woke up and I pulled out the Bible app and I saw what our reading plan was for the day, and I saw the video that the day started with, and today's video was on the image of God. Today's video was talking about how we are the image bearers of God. We are not God himself. We are not gods, but we are the image bearers of God. And these tormentors in our life are constantly telling us that you, the image bearer of God, you, God's masterpiece, you are not good enough. You are not strong enough. Translation, you, image bearer of God, God is not big enough. God is not strong enough. And so each and every day, at least this is my story, I sit here and I try and take it on myself. I try and be the hero of my story, and I end up saying tomorrow is the day. And those tormentors' favorite day, the enemy's favorite day of the week, is always tomorrow. Tomorrow is the day, which is why we need someone else to come in and to change the story. We need someone else to come in and to change this narrative. And as the king started to walk back into his tent, he began to hear a different murmur from the people. He began to hear the men talking about something, and it wasn't excitement necessarily, but it wasn't the same fear that he had heard every single day for the last 39 days. No, today, on day 40, there was something different that he was hearing. See, out amongst the men, this little boy had shown up. And this little boy had come to bring some provisions for his brothers, but as he came, he heard the big guy out there. He heard the tormentor out there mocking the people, mocking the army, mocking God. And this boy hears this and he begins to ask some questions that the men were too afraid to ask. Questions like, how long has he been doing this? How in the world can you allow him to talk about God that way? Why hasn't somebody gone out there to fight this guy? He's just a man. Why are you all, now you can hear the insinuation in his voice, even though he's not saying the actual words. Why are you all so afraid? Why hasn't somebody stepped up? Now, not unexpectedly, the king was hearing that the men weren't all that excited about having this little boy show up and start talking about how they weren't being strong enough and they weren't being brave enough and they weren't being tough enough. In fact, some of them, especially his brothers, they were trying to get out of here, you little punk of a kid. What are you even doing here anyway? Go back to your meaningless little job and let the men take care of the work that the boys can't do. Never mind the fact that the men are sitting around shaking every single day, not doing anything. But as the men are trying to get rid of this little boy, the king hears this, and he decides, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this kid in. I want to hear what he has to say. And as the boy walks up, the king realizes for the first time that, no, this is very truly a boy walking up to me. This dude is little. And as the boy walks up, the king realizes this kid has a ridiculous amount of confidence. Way more confidence than I have, way more confidence than the men that I've been working with have had. And the boy begins to say, I'll take him on. I'm not afraid of this guy. Nobody gets to talk about our army this way. Nobody gets to talk about our God this way. And the king, hearing this confidence, sits there and thinks, wow, that's great. I wish one other person would have that, but not this kid. See, this tormentor out there has been trained since childbirth to kill people. He has been trained with the sword. He has been trained with the axe. He has been trained with the spear. He's been trained with the javelin. He's been trained in hand-to-hand combat. He could kill you in 20 different ways, and 5 of them include just using his pinky. This guy out there can tear anybody apart, especially this tiny little boy. And I get it. The boy's telling me. The boy's telling me that he's killed bears and he's killed lions, and that's great and that's impressive, but this isn't a bear or a lion. This is a human being who knows nothing but killing. But then as the king begins to think about it, the king begins to realize, I've got nothing to lose. There's no way any of my men are going out there, and I don't want to go out there. I want to be remembered as victorious. I don't want to be remembered as the guy with a spear sticking through his gut. I'm not going out there, and maybe, just maybe, I know there's no way in the world that this boy is going to win this battle, but I can send this boy out there, and maybe his courage will wear off on the other men. No, he's going to die. Make no doubt about it. He's going to die when he goes out there. But maybe, and I know it will violate the terms of the agreement, but maybe it will excite the rest of the men enough that after the boy goes out there and dies, they will be so upset that this beast tore apart this young boy that they will have no choice but to go out there and engage in battle. And then maybe we have a chance of not becoming slaves for the rest of our lives. Maybe. But there is no way in the world that I am sending the boy out there like he is. He's wearing nothing but the kind of cloth that you would wear out into a field to take care of sheep. He's got a stick. This isn't going to work. I'm going to send him out on my terms at the very least. I'm going to send him out and I'm going to put my armor on him so that he can at least have some protection. So at least then the men won't accuse me of just simply sending this kid to his slaughter. But my goodness, that boy is really small. And as the king puts on his armor, he's not even sure there's still a boy in that armor. He's not sure there's still a human in there somewhere. In fact, it's one of those things where the breastplate is sticking up over the kid's head. And if he starts running, he's going to run into a wall. And that's about it. So I'm going to have to let him go out. I'm going to have to let him do it his way. I'm not going to be able to make him do it my way. And so the king decides, all right, go. The king knows exactly what's going to happen. And as he watches, he sees the boy walk over to a stream. He has no idea what the boy's doing over at the stream, but the boy spends some time at the stream, probably saying his prayers for the end of his life. Probably praying, God, please accept my spirit as I go out here to die in battle. Because surely this boy doesn't really believe that he's going to win. And the king watches as the boy stands up, and my goodness, this boy looks confident, like his shoulders are back, and he's squared up, and he's looking straight down there at that tormentor. And the king hears exactly what he expects to hear as the boy looks out there. He hears the voice of the tormentor yelling at the boy, going, am I a dog that you would come at me with nothing but a stick? I'm going to take your body, and I'm going to feed your flesh to the birds and the animals. That, and if you read the story, mixed in with a bunch of cursing, but since this is Sunday morning, I won't go into extensively what that part was all about. But it wasn't pleasant. And somehow or another, as the king watches this happen, the boy seems to get taller. He doesn't cower like the men and the king have been doing every day. No, he stands up straighter as he hears these threats hurled at him and hears these insults hurled at him. His spine straightens up, his shoulders go back, his head is straight up to the sky. And he looks back and he says, you, let me tell you what's going to happen. Today, I am going to kill you, and I'm going to cut off your head, and I'm going to feed your flesh to the birds and the animals, and the flesh of all of the men with you will be fed to the birds and the animals, because this is the Lord's battle. And the boy takes a step forward, and the giant beast of a tormentor begins to run towards the boy, whereas surely at this point the boy will turn around and he will run away. But no, the boy moves forward even farther, and he takes a step, and the king sees it all coming down. He can envision the javelin coming back in the big guy's arms. He can envision the muscles underneath the armor getting tight and becoming defined, the sinews stretching out. As he gets ready to, at the perfect point of attack, release and throw his javelin forward. He can envision the boy being impaled to the ground as the head of that spear bursts through his chest and out his back and leaves him just lying there on the field, half standing, half laying. He can see it all happening, but what he doesn't see is he doesn't see the boy winding up. He doesn't see the boy rushing forward, because why would he pay attention to the boy that he has sent to his death? He doesn't want to see this. He doesn't see the boy rushing forward, and at the perfect moment, with perfect momentum, releasing the stone forward. He doesn't see the stone hit the tormentor straight in the middle of the forehead. What he sees is the tormentor rushing forward, and then suddenly his legs giving out and falling flat on his face, and the dust flying up around him as he hits face first. What he sees is the boy going up to the giant with nothing but his slingshot, putting it down, picking up the giant's own sword, and raising it above his head and cutting off the head of the giant. As many hacks as it takes, cutting off the head of the giant. Oh, I know, we don't read that part in the kids' stories. I get it. Cutting off the head of the giant, and with sword in one hand, reaching down and grabbing him by the hair and lifting him up high. Just the head for all to see, for all in the Israelite army to see, and proclaiming, your giant is dead. Your tormentor is dead. That thing that you thought you couldn't defeat, it's dead. It's not coming back. This is a head in my hand. I'm not dragging around the whole body. I'm dragging around the head. Your giant is dead. No Michael Myers sequels. No all of a sudden last second twitches where he jumps back up and he tries to attack you. Your giant, your tormentor, your mocker is dead. I don't know about you, but in my life, as I've read this story over and over and over again, I read it and I think I need to be more like David. I need to be courageous, and I need to go out and I need to take on the giants in my life. I need to take on the tormentors in my life. I need to defeat them. But the beautiful part of the story is you are not your story's hero. I'm not David. You're not David. In fact, as I read this story and I get really honest, I admit that I relate a lot more to the army in this story. I relate a lot more to the ones who constantly cower in fear, thinking, I can never defeat this. I'm never going to be strong enough. I'm never going to be big enough. I relate more to Saul in this story, who thinks, man, I wish that I would be braver. I wish that I would be tougher. But instead, in the story, Jesus is David. You see, Jesus went out, and while David defeated the enemy and killed the enemy with his own sword, chopping off his head with his own sword, brutal and gruesome as it may be, Jesus defeated the giants in our lives with an empty tomb. He defeated him with the enemy's own weapon of death and a cross. And he said, if you will do this on my terms, I will defeat your giants for you. You don't have to keep failing on your own. You don't have to keep running in fear on your own. I will do this for you. But too often I'm like Saul, and I'm saying, Jesus, please help me out with this. Jesus, please go defeat my giant, but wear my armor while you do it. I need you to do it my way. I need you to take down this thing in my life that I can't beat, but I need you to leave this part of my life alone while you do it. I need to still have my comforts in my life. I need to make sure that I don't lose this friend or I don't lose this part of my life. Jesus, defeat my giant, but do it on my terms. And Jesus looks at us over and over and over again. He says, I will defeat your giant for you. I will declare it dead. I will make it obvious that it is dead. But I have to do it on my terms. See, too often I'm like Saul and I look at Jesus and I treat him more like a little boy than I do a warrior that will go out and fight my battle for me. Too often I treat Jesus like he can't actually do it, like he's just the gentle person. Too often I'm asking the questions like Lucy in the Chronicles of Narnia, well, is he a tame lion? And I know the response that the badger gave, oh no, he's not tame, but he's good. I know the response of that. But I still treat him like he's a tame, gentle, weak warrior. Whereas Jesus is telling me I am anything but. And if you will hand it to me, if you will let me do this on my terms, I will get that out of your life. And I know we sit there and we think, I've done that before, I've given it to Jesus before. And it still crops back up because here's the thing, we are still the army in the story. We still have a responsibility in the story. As you finish the story, David goes out and David chops off the head and David declares that the giant is dead, but the army rushes in. The army rushes the field and takes down every last member of that Philistine army. It doesn't sit there and say, oh, thank goodness my giant is dead. Now I'm going to sit here and relax. I'm going to sit here and enjoy this field. No, the army says the giant is dead. Now let's destroy anything that might bring it back up again. Let's destroy yes, I know, it's brutal, it's battle. But let's destroy any member of this military that could come back and attack us again on a future day. Church, we are constantly under attack. And while the giant, the tormentor, has been defeated, he's got friends. Jesus will take care of those for us too if we allow him, but we still have the responsibility of rushing the field. Jesus will kill the giant, but we have to take the field afterwards. And I know in my life, that's where I tend to drop the ball. I tend to sit there and I say, God, I need you to take care. I don't have the answers. And I'm not going to come up with the answers. I give up. I've tried over and over and over again. I have made plans over and over again that next Monday I'm gonna take this down, or tomorrow is gonna be my day. I've done it over and over again. I've gone to bed at night making plans of how I'm going to take down my giant. Just like I would assume that the men in the field went to bed at night planning how they were going to be the hero the next day and they were going to take down the giant, only to wake up the next day and fail again. I've done this over and over, and I've tried to give it to you and have you do it on my terms. Church, at some point we have to say, Jesus, on your terms. On your terms. Please take down my giant. And then I'm ready to rush in behind as the army and finish the job. An army is not one person, though. An army is a group of people. And I want you to look around and understand that you are not in that battle alone. It's the other part that we tend to slip up on. We ask Jesus to take down the giant, and then we try and take on the army by ourselves. And he's saying, you weren't intended to do any of that. You were intended to let me take down the giant, and you take on the army with an army. You are not the hero of your story. I'm not the hero of my story. And I know there can be teaching on it, and you can use the story differently and teach it a little bit different. I don't think that's inaccurate. I think there are some things in Scripture that, depending on how you read them, you can use the story a little bit differently, and it's not manipulating it, and it's not lying with it. But I can tell you, for me, it has become a relief as I come to this realization that I don't have to be the hero of my story. This morning, I asked you first off, what tormentors are there in your life? What mockers of God are there in your life that you just can't get rid of, that you've tried over and over and over again? And I don't know if you came up with one or not. Maybe you came up with one as I was talking. Maybe it'll hit you later on today. But if you are sitting there this morning and you know what it is, don't leave here this morning without giving it to the one who can actually defeat it. Not on your terms, not putting limitations on him, but giving it to him this morning and saying, do what you need to do, because I can't do it. Church, we have altars up here that are a great spot to do that. You can do it right in your chair. You can grab somebody around you and you can say, hey, I need you to be my army right now. Like, I'm giving this to Jesus, but I need you to be ready with some backup as I rush the field. Don't wait until tomorrow to give it to Jesus. Do it this morning. Give it to him this morning. And then I would love it if you would share those stories so that other people can see that this really is the way that you win the battle. Don't keep that to yourself. Celebrate the victories that Jesus gives. Tell others about the giant head that is being carried around, that is dead in your life. Share it with others so they can be encouraged. And then rush the field.